Tonight's broadcast of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of the Midway Point Season 5, Round 5 of the NLRL Sunday League, right here in Pest County, Hungary. As always, I'm Regan Clark. You join us here at the season midway, of course, after one of the most hectic rounds of the championship, reeling away from the chaotic action that ensued in Bathurst at the first double sprint of the season, to join us here at the home of the Hungarian Grand Prix, here at the Hungaroring, founded in 1986, actually specifically on the 24th of March 1986, meaning in about 9 days from when this is recorded, it will be celebrating its 40th anniversary. It's 14 turns and 2.7 miles, or 4.381 kilometers, of FIA Grade 1. Of course, home of the Hungarian Grand Prix, but also sees racing from TCR Europe and the International GT Open. It is a fantastic circuit, often praised for its almost go-kart-like feeling by Formula One drivers from across the many years in circulation this has been in the sport. But today, it's the battleground for the halfway mark. We're on board at the moment with Taylor Wolford and reeling away from history in the making. The first Swiss driver to become a race winner in the NLRL Sunday League was crowned last weekend from Australia, as we went on to see not one but two wins back-to-back for Carlos Disch. And this has laid in the foundations for a very heavy shift in the power balance here in the Sunday League, getting a look into all of the details, then starting off with the championship standings. And it's a rather significant impact after those double victories in Bathurst. Of course, the first double points round of the season gave rise to what is our current understanding of the top 10. Carlos Disch leads ahead of Cas van Velzen by only 2 points. We'll see how that comes to scale into the second half of the championship with that drop point system in effect. Melvin Milliston in third place, Alan Alexander in fourth, but it's worth noting he'll be dropping positions amidst claims that he has swapped vehicles. We'll go to catch on with him in a little bit there. We just see in the background was Shubble for Melvin Milliston, Kieran Rodd in fifth with Zolt Beefgartner in sixth, Ian Skeen seventh, Brooklyn Donkin in eighth, Ben Meredith in 9th place, and rounding out the top 10 in the overall standings, Jason Didona with Nissan with 39 points. Now, getting a look into division standings, going in towards the scope of things with the rookies, getting a look in with their championship. Not only does Carlos Disch lead in the outright, he leads in the rookies also, having been formally designated as a rookie after entering as a reserve. He leads 20 points clear of Kieran Rodd in second with Ben Meredith third, Gioet Boris fourth, and Michael Hunt in fifth. Jason Didona in 6th place with Fake Galaxy, a joint 7th with Sam Greaves, amidst chaos in that second race that otherwise would have seen Galaxy, a first Austrian race winner in this series, was sadly ripped out of his hands following an incident up through the quarry corner. We'll speak more on that a little later on though. Michael Harris 9th place, and Luke Wilson rounds out the top 10 for the rookies. Last but not least then, the teams championship, and with Euro Titans leading ahead of 5-star, it's worth pointing that points gap between those two teams has come down now to only 73 points in the last round, owing to a 122 point haul from the 5-star esports team, courtesy of those double wins for Carlos Disch, among several other contributions from across the team. It's a new era for 5-star, and they seem poised to challenge in the second half of the championship for a possible team's championship title. Velocity Racing Team 3rd place then, the single-man operation of Milliston, still on for the podium. And then with TSRC Esports 4th, LMP Esports in 5th, Team FBR 6th, MSR 7th, Nexus GT 8th, VC Esports 9th, and Holkianos to round out the top 10 in the team's championship. Taking a look into, just briefly in the comments there in the Twitch chat, Cas van Velzen asking about the Gold Championship. I assume you're referring to the overall championship, which we just discussed there, where in which you yourself are actually second place by 2 points away from Disch. Looking at the regulations for today, we're back on the standard format, and as we see here, we're in the midst of 10 minutes of free practice, 20 minutes of quali around the corner, and 60 minutes of racing to follow, one mandatory pit stop on a fixed 25-second refueling time in this session. Taking a look also into every race winner after the 48th race last weekend at the end of the Bathurst double sprint. Of course, we see the 15th new name on the list, Carlos Disch, with his double wins in Australia. We can see there how things have scoped up. So far this season, it was wins led by Van Velzen and Milliston, but now a new name enters the ring, and this is going to make for some very exciting stuff heading into the second half of the championship here in Season 5. Taking a look at the success ballast after round 4, we see that Van Velzen heaviest with 14 kilos on. Carlos Disch, owing to his double victories in Bathurst as well as a podium in Zolder, finds himself currently looking at 12 kilos additional weight. Milliston with 11 kilos, Beefgartner with 5, Alexander with 4th, LeBay with 3, getting a little too close into standings talk there. Not second, no, 2 points. I'm so used to seeing the number and just reading it as a position now. 2 kilos on for Kieran Rod, a single kilo for Fate Galaxy and for Tyler Vermack. You can see there the key at the bottom, the success ballast introduced for Season 5 of the Championship. We'll see how effective it comes to be as we get into the second half of the Championship into next weekend. Taking a look at the calendar, of course, here at the halfway mark of the Championship at the Hungaroring. Next round will be the second endurance race of the season at the Circuit Paul Ricard. I believe our first visit there to the Circuit Paul Ricard in the history of the Sunday League. That's going to make for some exciting viewing. Also, on a topic there of returning to this series, I should say, is Donington and Zandvoort. That's going to make some exciting stuff round 7 and round 8. Of course, Donington we saw, I think, as far back as Season 2. So this is a long time coming to see that circuit return. Super underrated pick on the calendar there, of course, all decided by the omnipotent wheel. We still stay on board here with Taylor Wolf. Taking a look at the timings at the moment, it's Tyler Vermack fastest in the session, and our suspicions are confirmed there. Alan Alexander has ditched Porsche for greener pastures at Mercedes AMG. That means he'll half his points in the championship, dropping himself away from the top 5 in the overall championship standings. He's ahead at the moment of Stefan Nikolai 3rd, with Gio at Boris 4th, and Sam Angel in 5th place. Brooklyn Donkin in 6th place ahead of Taylor Wolford on our screens here, just across the line from 7th. Kieran Rod in 8th, Josh Wellbeloved 9th, and Ben Meredith rounds out the top 10. Getting a look on board then with a few of the drivers up inside of that top 10. We'll stay on board with Alan Alexander as we get a bit more of a comprehensive look at the balance of performance. Now, you have to take this one with a grain of salt, as we have had some issues getting more accurate data for this round specifically. We hope to see that remedied by the time we get to Paul Ricard next weekend. But of what we were able to scrape up here, this is what it roughly looks like. 40 kilos off for Lexus. Most poignantly, and this was really the centre of some controversy, and it's BMW with 33 kilos off. Now, there were a few drivers to chip in with their opinion on this. Among them was Van Velzen, and also we're about to see, by the looks of things here, a very confident performance out of Tyler Vermack, possibly chasing his first victory in the series since the first round of last season in Season 4 of the championship. We see at the moment it was momentarily a BMW 1-2, not if Alan Alexander has anything to say about it. Rumours there that Mercedes has 7 kilos off at the moment. Nissan with 22 kilos away. Aston Martin net neutral at the moment. So for Sam Angel, things neither gained nor lost for this round of the championship. Into the positives, Lamborghini with 10, Ford with 11, Ferrari with 15, Porsche with 19, and McLaren with 20 kilos. It's a real law of extremes, and that's not factoring in those success ballasts for those drivers we mentioned earlier on in the discussion of the regulations. Well, we're not long from the start of qualifying here for round 5, and where it won't be deciding 2 grids this time around, it'll be deciding just the one. And we see Carlos Disch, last round's double race winner, the first Swiss driver to ever win in the NLRL Sunday League, now formally recognised as part of the Rookies Championship. Now adorned with the golden badge there as opposed to the silver when he competed last round as a reserve. He's second fastest by 1.3 seconds, nursing that newfound success ballast. Tyler Vermack with very minuscule changes to the overall weight shift on his BMW. I think only a single kilo we noted just earlier on. So here we'll be finding some of the best advantage of any one driver in this race. It does seem like the stars are aligning here in the new age for 5-Star Esports. It's worth pointing out as well. Get a look at that brand new paint scheme. You may be curious to wonder then, what are those flecks of red? What do they symbolize here? Of course, we last saw changes like this for them back when they were known as K1 Esports, when they were sponsored by Green Hell Racing. They had these bright green strokes across the car. Now, these red ones, as it turns out, and to address finally the elephant in the room, this is something we've had going on over on their iRacing team, but we're happy to announce TRTN is one of the official sponsors now of the 5-Star Esports ACC division, following significant reforms to the team structure and balancing. They're finally ready to go into a new era, and they really were able to kick things off last weekend with that double whammy by the 545, and it could very well be going on to a string of even further successes here with the 545 second, and currently Tyler Vermack ending this session fastest, a 142.645 for BMW. A few drivers to the line, among them the 54. So we'll go to catch on board if we can then with the 54. Josh Wellbeloff to the line. Then further down the field, the number 26 and the number 6. And that's Taylor Wolford and JM Keto. And then the 61, Kieran Rodd. We'll get into that conversation just a moment from now of those qualifying predictions, as things are looking rather spicy on that grid. And we'll get into the conversation right about now. As we see there, the session starts. 20 minutes of qualifying to be had here in the Hungaroring. And as we see, first among the fray on his home race here, Zolt Beefgartner with TSRC Esports. Taking a look then at the qualifying predictions for round 5 of the championship. Tyler Vermaak predicted at pole position by just over 0.3 of a second to Melvin Milliston in second. Ian Skeen in third, with Carlos Deesch predicted 4th. Cas van Velzen rounds out the top 5. Brooklyn Donkin 6th, with Taylor Wolford 7th. Kyle Jenkins 8th. Zolt Beefgartner 9th. And Stefan Nikolai in the top 10 on those Simbot predictions. It's going to get very, very interesting to see how all of this materializes now with some of the heaviest ballasts we've seen so far. And that system really starting to go full hammer here into the halfway mark of the championship. We see Beefgartner dropping in behind Van Velzen and Vermaak in the leading charge. We see just leaving the pits here Michael Johnson and Sergio Belder. Getting a look on board here with the leading entourage of BMWs. We'll go to catch if we can on board here with the brand new livery for the number 8 of Tyler Vermaak. Of course, this recent move over towards BMW, back to familiar territory for him. He's competed with BMW in this series before, and this definitely seems to be a bit more of a sighting run for him, not trying to fight too quickly into the championship. He knows that this is much more aiming to be a 2-horse race with that recent introduction of Carlos Deesch, now leading that overall 2 points clear of Cas van Velzen. Now, it is worth pointing out, of only 2 rounds competed, those are all the points that are going in towards his drive at the moment, whereas in the drop point system, you can make the argument that he is still yet to see enough results to drop away. So we'll definitely see a much more dramatic shift of things by that way of thinking heading into round 6 at Paul Ricard as we kick off the second half of the season. On board then with Vermaak for the tour of the track here. As we see the run down the opening straight, Hungaroring really does not take many prisoners here, and it is a very difficult track. If those competing on track today have not done so before, it is really going to be a case of almost swimming without the armbands in that sense. Out through turn 1 on the run in towards turn 2 then. Very sharp open hairpin right into a very sharp open hairpin left. That brings us down here, very sharp right, but you're able to carry a lot of speed in through as we get to sort of the dip of the track. Now, being situated in a valley, one of the best advantages of the Hungaroring is you can actually see a great majority of the track from anywhere around the area. It does make for some fantastic viewing, which is why it's such a favoured spot on the Grand Prix calendar for those looking to get away to watch a race over the course of the season. Down through to turn 6 and 7 here at this very sharp chicane. Now, we've seen plenty of action in other series before. Here at the Hungaroring for the Sunday League grid, it looks to be no different. This is going to be a real area of contention, first in qualifying and then later in the hour of racing to follow here for round 5 of the championship. Now into this almost roller coaster-like section. Now this is what's given it that sort of vibe to most drivers in the professional space, that this is almost like an oversized go-karting track. You really get to see it here in that third sector. Heavy braking zone down towards turn 12. Then we have the parallel hairpins here. Open hairpin left coming up into turn 13. We saw a few years ago in the real dominant era for Red Bull, Max Verstappen spun at this section of the track, fell in behind Charles Leclerc, later went on to overtake him and won the Hungarian Grand Prix in that same race. Out through turn 14 to the line then. Vermaak the first time onto the charts, 1:43.257, but as we see there, that was invalidated for him, so it's Cas van Velzen first onto the charts, then Zolt Beefgartner at his home race here, Carlos Deesch to second fastest. We can see lingering in the background there is Melvin Milliston. To the line he goes, but doesn't put a time on the charts. Josh Wellbeloff does to 4th. From behind, we see the 61, Kieran Rodd, 4th fastest. Then from behind him to the line, I believe we see there, that was the number 40, Ben Hart, to the line, but didn't put a time on the charts either. Number 855 across the line here, one of the new drivers on the grid, making their way down toward the line here. Very late entry into this championship for the number 855. This is Ellie Pocket. We'll see what they can do over the course of this event. This is their first appearance on this grid. I believe actually, looking back through the record, they'd have registered before Zolder, because they actually appear on the charts before Deesh or Galaxy. They made their appearance 2 rounds ago in Zolder. So for Pocket, this is a very late entry in. We'll be curious to know what they can do, though. The 855 currently 6th and Division 2nd for the rookies. Meanwhile, Sam Angel in the top 10. Sergio Belda 11th. We saw from behind there the Porsche of Michael Johnson onto his second flying lap. Meanwhile, the 113 across the line a moment ago, and that was for Kyle Jenkins momentarily into that top 10, but across the line went Sam Greaves, now tucks in behind Ellie Pocket to 7th and Division 3rd for the rookies. Number 8 coming to the line. Let's catch on board here with Tyler Vermack. Now, he missed out on that first flying lap, but down to the line, it was looking very competitive, and that it is by nearly a full second there. 883 thousandths, 8 tenths, 8 hundredths, 3 thousandths to be more precise. Vermack fastest. Van Veltsen second then, as it stands with Deesh third. Beefgartner across the line there for 6th. As it stands right now, Melvin Milliston jumps up to 2nd place in that last lap just gone. The 2-time champion gunning for another victory there. Was it a 2-race drought caught up in that opening lap incident in Bathurst that claimed some 13 cars out through turn 1, half of which ended up retiring in race 1, including Milliston himself. It was a down-and-out round, one to forget then for the 2-time champ last weekend, looking to right those wrongs here in Hungaroring at the season halfway. 313 across the line a moment ago. That was for Ben Meredith, goes 13th, and currently Division, looking at it there, 5th in the Ferrari. Nearby to the line, we see the 74, and that is for Sergio Belda. Up in front of him there, Michael Johnson in the 663 Porsche. Down in the line goes Johnson, with Belda in pursuit. From 17th stays Belda at this time. Number 26 coming to the line. Belda's teammate, JM Quito at Holkianos Motorsports. They're making their way slowly but surely up through the team's championship. We'll see what they can do here. Down to the line goes JM Quito, up to 14th. 2 positions cleared. The 113 nearest to the line. Kyle Jenkins breaks back into the top 10. Tucks in behind Angel, ahead of Hart though. Number 8 near to the line. Vermack leading this session again for the South African talent. He is gunning for his first victory since the start of Season 4. Where he won with Ford in Indianapolis. Making his way down to the line then. Still fastest in this session, but that gap is starting to wane. 663 thousandths between himself and Milliston. We see to the line the 545 from 4th, goes 3rd. Now we see Milliston to the line here from 2nd. Can he go up to 1st? It is an improvement. Splits the gap down in half. 54 nearest to the line. And that'll be for Josh Wellbeloved. Goes up to 14th in that last lap. From behind him, the number 40. Ben Hart jumps up to 8th place. There you can see that white livery for the 5-star esports team. Now, what does this represent? With this brand new design language, these white cars, if I'm not mistaken, are the Academy vehicles. Of course, the 5-star Academy has now been re-established. It went on hiatus for quite some time. Actually, I think shy on a year now since it was deactivated, but it is now back in swing with a full constituted lineup. Among them is Ben Hart, one of their recent acquisitions in the last couple of months. The number 40 then 8th fastest, but competing in the pros. Of course, we saw him last season in Season 4, hence why he competes up in the pros this season. Across the line a moment ago, the 315, Alan Alexander. Bear in mind, this is his sighting run in this series for Mercedes. I believe we have seen him before in the AMG, but as it stands there in the top 5, very confident position so far, and he's had to sacrifice his points to be in this position. Of course, as per the season regulations, when you swap the car, you do take a half points reduction. If your points are under 40, you take a static loss of 20 points. In this case, for Alexander, he's now split his points down the middle to move away from Porsche to Mercedes. So this is him scarpering his chances at the championship, but it is going to gear him up for a much more confident run of things into Season 6. And while we're not at liberty to discuss precisely what's coming into Season 6, do know there are some significant reforms to the regulations coming in, with the hopes that it makes racing all that more interesting and for the drivers all that more competitive. More information to hand later on this season, if not on the season break between Season 5 and Season 6. But what we can say from our point of view and what's being discussed, it is looking really, really quite special. So then, 10 minutes coming up on left to go. We see recently there, Ellie Pocket was momentarily in that top 5 from behind. Cas van Veltsen goes faster into 3rd. Now up and ahead of both Pocket and Deesh. So it is worth pointing out here, Ellie Pocket could definitely fight in this very late entry, mind you, where they had signed up heading into Zolder, actually. They were on that Zolder entry list, but never showed out. The A55, so it stands, this mysterious driver, having entered in 2 rounds late to their original entry point, could be hunting down a win in category on entry here. This is a very curious case indeed, going toe-to-toe with a recently very motivated Carlos Dish. Those two really not too far apart from each other whatsoever. Must say, with the success ballast really creeping in strong now, it is looking a lot more distant than the last couple of qualifyings. Is that perhaps the case of a track like the Hungaroring, where it's got quite a sort of Marmite reputation on the grid? Not many drivers are huge fans of this circuit. They think it ought to stay over in the world of Grand Prix racing. Others believe the contrary. 315 nearest to the line. Alexander was momentarily in that top 5 earlier on in this session. Current nearest target is the BMW in front of him in 6th, that being Brooklyn Donkin with Eurotitan's Endurance. We're starting to see perhaps a bit of a tip in the power balance here in the team's championship with these recent successes by 5-Star Esports, those back-to-back wins for Dish, and as it stands right now, a very confident pole position so far into the second half of qualifying today for Tyler Vermack. Moreover, we see there Kieran Rod now splitting the tide of his teammates for 7th place. Donkin still ahead, but Alexander shifted down to 8th place. Behind him, we see there in number 40, that's Ben Hart, now to 9th. As it stands right now, still inside of that top 10 with the 5-Star Esports Academy car, number 40. Number 696 across the line a moment ago there. That was for, I believe, was that the 696? Yes, I am reading that correctly. Yes, the 696. So yes, that's Ian Skeen, just a bit of a later entry than expected for Skeen. Of course, was one of several casualties in that opening lap in race 1 of 2 last weekend at the Bathurst double sprint. Fortunately, we get to see him once again here at the Hungaroring. Now not by his lonesome in the Euro Titans lineup when it comes to Mercedes cars, with Alan Alexander now hopping into the 315 AMG. We had the opportunity over on NLRL to really pick the brains of some drivers who are using the AMG quite often, and it was a case where we got to learn quite a lot about the car, some valuable insight about this machine. It's very counteractive to set up. A lot of what you think works on one car works the inverse on the AMG. It's a car where you almost have to design the setup around whether or not the aerodynamics are going to be persuasive on the circuit. It is much more an aero car than it is a suspension car, and that's a broad difference against some of the other manufacturers on this grid, where you've really got to have every element pulling its weight, whereas for this, a lot of it has to be shaped around the aero, whether or not it will put up on this track, whether or not it won't put up on this track, what can be done to compensate around it. It is a very awkward machine, so we've heard, to work on, but as we've seen on quite a few occasions, it is still a fantastic bit of kit when given into the right hands. We see here for Skeen, he's inside of that top 10. He's one of 2 Mercs inside the top 10 with his teammate Alan Alexander currently 10th place. And Skeen, as it stands there, challenging Ellie Pocket for the top 5. We'll see if he can do it in this lap. Down across the line goes the 696, and he goes up to 4th, so up and ahead of not only Ellie Pocket, but Carlos Dish as well. Up onto that second row. Now side by side here in qualifying, only by about, looking at it there, 18 thousandths of a second off of his teammate Cas van Veltzen. Number 67 across the line a moment ago. That was for Gioet Boris with Team MSR. Down across the line. Now, to address some issues that we had in that last race, of course, you'll note in the session so far, we've still yet to see him, I believe, and that was Fake Galaxy. Now, he just can't make it to this round today, but his teammate will carry the torch on those new additions to the 5-star lineup, that being Carlos Dish in 5th place at the moment. You'll note that the incident that took him out of this that last race, in race 2, where he was gearing up to be the first Austrian race winner in Sunday League history, so that would have been back-to-back records in history made there. That incident up through Quarry Corner where he collided with, I believe it was Nuke Waste, we've finally got word on what actually happened there. There was an intentional wrecking incident with Waste attempting to take out, so it appears, and this was according to Race Control, so hold their word for it, not ours, but it's a case where, according to their investigation, it was an intentional wrecking incident where the 159 attempted to take out Taylor Wolford in the number 6 Porsche, ultimately ended up spinning himself and collecting the approaching 55 of Fate Galaxy. Obviously, very awkward section to end up stranded in, up through Quarry. It's a blind section that you're going up flat out, trying to carry as much speed as possible. You can't see around the corner, so by the time he was there, it was already too late for him to get out of the way. And ultimately, that's what caused him to drop down to 7th for the end of that second race, sundering his chances of a race win. His teammate, on screen at the moment, Carlos Dish, ended up picking up his second race win right off the back of his maiden victory. So taking a look in those overall wins as well, just to see where that adds him on the scales. And taking a look here, we see Carlos Dish, of course, the 15th driver in the history of this series to take home a race win. Last one being Levi Warner. So it stands there. Milliston still holds the all-time record, 18 race wins. And then that joint second between Kuiper, Busch and Vermaak. Van Velzen right behind them with 4 career wins. He secured his 4th this season, as a matter of fact, in the opening round at Suzuka. And then we see tucked in behind him Carlos Dish into what is effectively almost a spiritual 4th place, but physically is 6th on that leaderboard. Then behind, you see that joint position held between Warner, Alexander, Cassier, Rosnov, Skeen, Ivanov, Van Manen, Putic and Baptiste. All the way back then to the very first rounds of the championship. Dish then down to the line on this last lap. 4 minutes left to go for him. Still holds on to the top 5. Brooklyn Donkin now splits the tide between him and Ellie Pocket. Speaking of Pocket, we see there heading down towards the line. Bear in mind, really not too great a gap to clear to get back up over Donkin. So for them, this is very close margins to play at. Looking at the gap between them and Donkin, I believe looking there, that is 25 thousandths of a second. So very close stuff for the 855. Still a close qualifying to be had outside of that top 3 at the moment. Then it's Vermaak from Milliston from Skeen, recently up to 3rd there with Mercedes AMG. Now up and ahead of Van Velzen. Those two, as it stands there, separate by getting rough gauge of it. That's about 145 thousandths of a second in and around that ballpark. So very close stuff indeed. One of the closest margins we can see here is from Pocket to Alexander. We see currently split by 3 thousandths of a second. Then behind them by 5 thousandths, Hart to Rod towards the back of the field there on that 5th row, 9th and 10th. 3 minutes left to go in the session. Let's go to catch on board with the nearest driver to the line. I believe it's the 96. If we can catch them here. Sam Greaves to the line from 16th. Can he go up into that top 15 across the line? Not this time around. From behind him, the 91 comes to the line here. Ivan Sanchez from 23rd stays there in that last run. The number 54 across the line for Josh Wellbeloved. That's up to 16th with Nexus GT in that last lap just gone. Number 8 coming to the line. I believe that to be, yes, Tyler Vermaak across the line. From behind him, we see there the 545 of Carlos Dish from 5th across the line, stays there. Number 61 and number 6 coming to the line. So looking to catch on board here, Kieran Rod. And then behind him being Taylor Wolford. Rod in the top 10 at the moment. Wolford from behind stays 19th. 855 across the line a moment ago. That's Ellie Pocket making their way out onto another flying lap. Must say as well, I don't know if this is a coincidence, but just looking at Pocket's car here, eerily reminiscent of the Malwar Racing colours. I just thought that was quite a curious remark. Now, it could also be argued, I mean, taking a look there, anyone who can see silver and red on a McLaren might know where I'm going with this, but I'm getting almost a little bit of a Vodafone McLaren vibe back from the sort of late 2000s, early 2010s Formula 1 McLarens. Still arguably their best livery. It's up in arms, in my opinion, between that and obviously the Marlboro McLarens of the 1990s. And very late 80s. Actually, it went all the way back to the 70s, didn't it? Yeah, James Hunt had a Marlboro livery on his McLaren. So, well, maybe longer then, but again, it's up in arms between that and the Vodafone one, in my opinion, over their best livery. It is a curious case then, speaking of liveries then, just briefly back on board with the current qualifying leader then, Tyler Vermaak, 1:42.565 to beat, currently the fastest time as he crosses round out of turn 14, making his way onto another flying lap. Across the line he goes on for one more go around track from behind him. We see up to 4th place. There goes Carlos Disch and throws the towel in on his qualifying endeavours. Satisfied by up of 100th over Cas van Velzen to 4th. Starts on the 2nd row alongside Ian Skeen. Struggling then with the success ballasts in this round. Moreover, things were obviously looking a little bit awkward for Ford right from the get-go. The 545, great hustle throughout. And I think that these ballasts have definitely done a great favour here for Ian Skeen, because he's found himself very confident on this track. It's been the perfect storm, really, for Skeen to be within that position to fight for the lead in the very early parts of the race coming up. He's got a very powerful position. He starts trailing in the wind there of the number 8 down through to turn 1. If he can sneak up the inside there on Milliston, he could have a shot at 2nd place right out of turn 1. So he's got all of the cards to hand here. You see here for Mac, down at turn 6 and 7, throws the towel in there. I think he was just trying to go for one more flying lap. Sadly, that's fallen apart for him, but I think that's just been enough in his favour to hold on to pole position. Bear in mind, Melvin Milliston is out on track at the moment, making his way up through that blind uphill leap to the left at turn 4. I'd say maybe your closest comparison to a corner like that on any other track actually leans in the opposite direction. That would be the Sheen curve over at Brands Hatch. Very similar in its design, where you've got to do almost a leap of faith up through that section, as drivers have found out historically. Nearest to the line, the 40 and the 91. So we've got to catch on board here. Ben Hart across the line, ends the session in 9th. The 91 across the line, Ivan Sanchez, 21st. The number 61 making his way through turn 13, Kieran Rodd, still on for a division podium start there for the rookies. At the moment, in a bit of a panicked state over the position he finds himself in the Rookies Championship. Bear in mind, I think this is a lot of early doors worries with the case of Disch leading by such a confident margin. It is a case where he's only got 2 results on the table so far, so he doesn't actually have anything that's applicable under the drop point system until later in the season. So it's going to look like early doors gains, but in the long term, he is still going to have to come to terms with the fact that he's got 2 rounds less than everyone else. We see Milliston across the line did bring it up to an improvement, but not enough to pole position. Across the line a moment ago then was the number 599 Zolt Beefgartner, just outside of the top 10 there. Skipped out on the chance by 108 thousandths of a second between himself and Kieran Rodd at the end of qualifying today. Well, an exciting qualifying nonetheless. Tyler Vermaak on pole position. Melvin Milliston in a very close 2nd place. Ian Skeen on a great result in qualifying. I'd say we've got our big 3 here for this race, but of course naive to not consider the elephant in the room. Carlos Disch looking for a hat-trick of victories after his double win in Bathurst is not too far away at all, and really not too far behind whatsoever by a single, actually not single, it's 500ths of a second between himself and Cas van Velzen, who led the championship before last weekend and is likely to still lead the championship once the drop points claim their toll off the 545 in a few weeks' time. Well, before we get into the grid, we do feel obligated to make this one known, as this was a bit of a complaint we had in the last couple of broadcasts we did, especially because we are about to discuss the results of the recent Formula 1 Chinese Grand Prix. So a spoiler warning for those of you who have not yet watched the 2026 Formula 1 Chinese Grand Prix. We'll give you about 5 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds to either shield your ears or mute the stream. We're not going to tell you when it stops. Just wait until the formation lap. But give you about 10 seconds. And as we wait then for the grid to form up, let's get into the news then. The first article coming up out of Formula 1, Andrea Kimi Antonelli wins the Chinese Grand Prix, the first Italian winner in 20 years since Giancarlo Fisichella won in the 2006 Malaysian Grand Prix with Renault. This is a fantastic mark from his maiden victory at 19 years of age. Mercedes on an absolute hot streak in the championship so far. It looks like we could be heading back to the times of the 2014 World Championship in an era of Mercedes-led dominance. The next article of news then on a series of first wins as well, relevantly trailing away from what was last week's first win for Carlos Disch. We see not only another first win in Formula 1, but also in the World Rally Championship. After 94 rallies in his career thus far in the WRC, Takamoto Katsuta and co-driver Aaron Johnston win in Safari Rally Kenya for their maiden victory. A fantastic outing for the pair. A very dramatic running of the 74th Safari Rally Kenya saw the top 3 for Toyota retire on the 2nd to 3rd leg of the rally, that being Elfyn Evans, that being Oliver Solberg, and that being multiple-time current joint record all-time world champion record holder Seb Ogier. All three of them dropped out on the halfway mark of that rally, so it was Taka's lead to gain there. He's the first Japanese winner in 34 years since Kenjiro Shinozuka won at the 1992 Ivory Coast Rally in his Mitsubishi Galant VR4. Toyota, like Mercedes in Formula One, are on a real hot streak this season. They head to the next round in Croatia in about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks time there in April. It's going to be very exciting to see what they can do heading into the second tarmac rally of the season. So, onto the grid here with 2.5 minutes before the formation lap for round 5 at the season midway of season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by Malwa Transport and live exclusively on TRTN. Tyler Vermaak on pole position with Melvin Milliston in second, Ian Skeen in third, and Carlos Stiesch in fourth. Cass Van Veltzen in fifth place, and Brooklyn Donkin in sixth. Ellie Pocket on their first appearance to the grid, seventh place, second in division. Very confident start there for the 855. Well, let's see what they can do. They're on the fourth row alongside Alan Alexander on his recent swap to Mercedes. Fifth row then, and rounding out towards the top 10, ninth place for Ben Hart, and 10th for Kieran Rodd. On his home race, Zolt Beefgartner just outside the top 10 there, the 599 TSRC Esports Lexus in 11th place, alongside Kyle Jenkins in 12th. Sam Angel with Aston Martin 13th place, ahead of Stefan Nikolai in 14th. Rounding out the top 15, just on that 8th row, Ben Meredith in 15th, ahead of Josh Wellbeloved in 16th. Taylor Wolford in 17th, with Sam Greaves 18th, JM Keto 19th, and Gioet Boris rounds out the top 20 at the back of the 10th row. Ivan Sanchez 21st, Richard Bettison 22nd, Sergio Belda 23rd, Michael Hunt in 24th, and Michael Johnson in 25th. Now, we're down 4 cars from the starting grid we found in the last round. Of course, 29 cars entered in Bathurst, only 25 into this round. That is not to say we may not find ourselves with history repeating itself, albeit this is a much sharper turn 1 than the one we have down at Hell Corner in Bathurst. This turn 1 we saw was a huge area of controversy at the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. Big lineup smash there down through to turn 1. Hopefully that doesn't happen today. Of course, one of those major contributing factors being wet weather. We find ourselves here with nice peachy dry weather. 23 degrees on track, 17 ambient, and no imminent threat of rain. 60 minutes then set to follow here for round 5. Back onto the standard format. 1 mandatory pit stop for fuel at a fixed refueling time of 25 seconds. So we'll catch on board here as we get to the 30-second warning. We'll stay on board with Tyler Vermaak, Melvin Milliston starting alongside him. These two, at one point in their time in this series, were both rivals to the championship. That was way back in the 3-way split that comprised Season 3's finale at Silverstone. Tyler Vermaak ended up crossing the line to be crowned champion at the time, but a post-race investigation saw a penalty drop onto the number 8, and it was so close on that margin that that single position drop behind Milliston was all that the Swede needed to secure his first of what is now 2 consecutive championship titles. On board then with Vermaak taking us away. You can see the grid lining up behind him there. 25 cars in all here for round 5 of the championship, peeling away. 5-Star Esports' Tyler Vermaak. A new era for the team as they now get official lineups sorted for both the main team and the academy team. This also reminds me to let you know as well, in obligations to our agreement with the team, they are actively looking for more drivers, so do give them a bell if you're interested in joining 5-Star Esports. Down towards turn 1 then. This is going to make for an ultra exciting top 3 here. Vermaak with 5-star, Milliston with Velocity, and Skeen with Euro Titans. The big 3 then of Season 5's Teams Championship go head to head here in Hungaroring. Making their way then down through to turn 2. You see this area does have a habit of swinging back on itself. You see it's just wide enough at turn 3 for drivers to possibly gear themselves up to go up the inside at turn 2 and hold it around the outside at turn 3. I have no doubts in my mind we'll be seeing plenty of drivers attempt that. Whether or not we'll see many of them succeed, we see here Holding short at turn 4. He's actually a little bit too enthusiastic. You can see this is very clever what Milliston's doing. This is a classic formation lap tactic. He's holding himself away from the rest of the field, backing up the rest of the field behind him, knowing that there's no ramifications for doing so this early on, but what it is forcing is Vermaak to get very creative with his tyres, as now having to sit there and wait for the rest of the grid to follow him means that those tyres are cooling down, they're losing temperature, so he's got to get a lot more aggressive with it, and he may run the risk of overcooking them in his haste to get some heat back in on those Pirellis. We also get word there from Ben Hart reset and teleported to the pit lane. So a down and out start for the 40. He'll start from the pits for round 5. May be spared, though, of what could be some serious action down through to turn 1. Things could get very bloodied if Bathurst was anything to go by. Still, again, possibly the largest pile-up I think we've ever seen. Now, there's that big 3 in the conversation for pile-ups. Season 1, Round 5 in Indianapolis in the Sunday League, and then over when we take a look at the Competizione Performance League's Jaguar GT3 Revival Series, the first race of 2 in the Brands Hatch circuit at the start of the British leg of the championship, kicked off to a huge pile-up down through Paddock Hill Bend. I'm pretty sure what we saw in Bathurst last weekend trumps the pair of them by quite some distance. And if it wasn't the first part of the first lap, the second part down at the Chase, which claimed an additional 5 cars, will certainly seal the deal. Well, with the hopes that we don't see something like that in this round, we hope to see every driver down to the checkered flag today. But make no mistake, on a track like the Hungaroring, things are going to get claustrophobic here at the midway. Do expect much of the same heading in towards this round. Chaos to ensue here in Magyarod, Pest County, Hungary, on our way round turn 14. Heading to the line then. 25 cars in all, 24 out on track, 1 from the pit lane. Heading down towards the line then. Round 5 of Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League. Leading from the front, Tyler Vermack from Melvin Milliston. And we are green and racing 2 cars there. Both the Holkianos cars, 26 and 91, given drive-throughs for position on start infractions. Great start, though, nonetheless, by Vermack. Tries to hold off the whole tide of cars chasing him down through turn 1. We can see following in his trails through turn 1, Ian Skeen doing exactly what we thought he'd do, trying to hold on to get his way up the inside, but has to slot back in behind Melvin Milliston. But the Swede has not wasted any time in his pursuits then of Tyler Vermack up at the front. We see there, that's Ellie Pocket, super wide on the run out through to turn 2. They rejoin, stuck in behind Zolt Beefgartner. We see here for Cas van Veltzen, tucked in behind his teammate Ian Skeen. Very elbows out start from the Dutchman, knows that he's got a championship to fight for here. This is his most competitive season, and entering the halfway mark away from what happened in Bathurst, this is his best possible chance to put more points over Carlos Diesch. 2 positions behind him, currently down in 6th. It's Vermack from Milliston, Skeen, Van Veltzen and Donkin in the top 5. Must say a great start also from Brooklyn Donkin to hold off an advance by Carlos Diesch. We see in the background there side-by-side action as Van Veltzen looks to try and take 3rd away from Ian Skeen. Into sector 3 we go. Very elbows out start then. The Euro Titans team looking to play things rather defensively. Almost a blockade formed, I should say, in front of Carlos Diesch. Further down the line we see Brooklyn Donkin possibly to get in on a fight here. Not long from now we see Ben Hart joining the track. He'll gain some positions here on start, courtesy of that drive-through for the 91 of the 26. We see Sam Greaves up and alongside the remaining Holkianos car, the 74 of Sergio Belder. Oh, sorry, that was Michael Hunt, the identical Team FBR car. There's Sam Greaves actually up in front there. So that's caught out a little bit there on the race start. We see here with Carlos Diesch pursuing Brooklyn Donkin for the top 5. Heading in towards turn 1, Donkin holding the inside. He's forcing Diesch to go very deep into turn 1, trying to switch things around for a run down towards turn 2. These two still very close to one another on that race start. Watching here with Diesch on the run down towards turn 2. This is where things could get lively. Behind him, Alan Alexander and Zolt Beefgartner. Worth pointing out there for Beefgartner, a fantastic start at his home race here, up from what is currently the total of 11th to 8th place. Ellie Pocket drops down to 9th, but is only half a second away. You can see they're tucked in up and ahead of Kieran Rod. Up in front, we see here the fighting for the top 5 still rage on. Brooklyn Donkin doing his absolute best here to hold off the advance from Carlos Diesch, to buy some time for Skeen and Van Veltzen. In towards turns 6 and 7 here, in at the chicane. Manages to hold him off and actually allows in, by looks of it there, Alan Alexander to come and have a go up the inside here. Bit of contact between himself and Carlos Diesch. Now Zolt Beefgartner may have a chance here over the 545 as we make our way into sector 3. Right behind him, Ellie Pocket, currently tucked into the slipstream on the 599 Lexus. Well, a very engaged start on this grid here, where we were expecting a little bit more contact. I think that's the worst we've seen of it inside the top 10 thus far. A bit of a shove between Alexander and Diesch just on the run through to turn 8. So far, so good, though. Fingers crossed. Taking a look back up towards the front of the field then. Getting a look here with Tyler Vermack. It's 0.9 of a second between himself and Melvin Milliston. up at the front of the field. Behind them, Cas van Velzen and Ian Skeen on the second row. So, taking a look in further around the field, we see here super close fight, and this is Pocket v Rod. Ninth up for grabs here. Ellie Pocket holds the inside away from Kieran Rod, having to go the long way around town over the 855. And now find him to the inside here, so we'll stay on board with Kieran Rod as he filters back in behind Ellie Pocket. On the run in towards turn 2, Pocket holds the inside there. Very early lunge up to the inside to keep the 61 from finding his way up through into this switchback section down at turn 3. Great defense so far on their first appearance in this series for Ellie Pocket. Up through to turn 4, and we see this is where things can often go wrong for drivers, as it's a very sharp switch out of turn 4 into turn 5. This long sweeping hairpin right brings us on the run into a super tight chicane here, turn 6 and 7. We see up in front continued fighting between Alexander and Deesh. Watching from the point of view here, though, for Kieran Rod in his current fight as it stands there for 9th place with Ellie Pocket. Beefgartner sizing up Deesh as it stands there on the run into sector 3. From behind, we see Stefan Nikolai sizing chances on Kieran Rod for a potential fight of 10th place. The two Mustangs could go head-to-head for the last of the top 10 positions here. In terms of what the current stakes are here for Kieran Rod, this is for 2nd in division, so 9th on track, 2nd in division for the rookies, up against Pocket, who's put on a great show so far in their first appearance to not only this championship, but to the Rookies Championship as well. We'll catch on with these two in a moment's time. Taking a look just behind here, Stefan Nikolai. This is Ben Meredith, Division 4 for the rookies, currently 12th on track, gunning for 11th. We see behind him Kyle Jenkins in the number 113. Let's get a look up towards the front of the field here. Alan Alexander still holding off that advance by Carlos Deesh. It's also worth pointing out, you can see up in front, things are getting much closer, not only on the second row, but definitely so on the first row. Let's go and catch on board here, if we can, with Melvin Milliston. He's in hot pursuit of Tyler Vermack, hunting down his career 19th win here in the Sunday League, hunting down the Big 20 by the end of this season. He knows he's started things a bit of a rough margin away from how the last season panned out for him. This is really the time for him to fight, as he's now got the opportunity to continue to outscore Van Velzen. We know for Deesh's case, at least in the next 2 rounds, is when the drop point system will become valid towards him. And as it stands there, that it could very well drop him further behind what is currently the lead of the championship by only 2 points. So it is a bit of a skewed statistic when you take a look at it from that angle. But for Milliston, this is go time here in the fog of war. In the chaos of it all, opportunities can be found. And this looks to be his best chance to usurp Van Velzen for command of the field, as and when it does happen. Taking a look further down the line here, we did see for a brief moment there great fighting in the top 15 defensive fight between Nexus GT and MSR. Gioet Boris and Josh Welbelove going head-to-head. Just in front of them was Sam Angel. Let's go and look in here with Ellie Pocket, currently looking to challenge now Zolt Beefgartner. And as I say that, let's go and get on board here with the number 545, as it does look to be a case that he is now looking for that move up towards 6th place. Brooklyn Donkin has done his best so far to try and hold off the advance of Carlos Deesh. But as we see it down towards turn 1, this could be the opportunity Deesh has been searching for. Holding the inside then, Brooklyn Donkin away from Carlos Deesh, but you can see switching it back for a later apex. He'll have the run of things down towards turn 2 with the 17 up the inside. He could be looking for a double switch to make things stick down towards turn 3. These two drivers all over the shop here in terms of that line, trying to play off of each other. Alan Alexander having a bit of trouble in the early parts of this race, is starting to drop back onto his teammate's nose here in the number 17. Brooklyn Donkin can only do so much to defend from his teammates here and hold off Carlos Deesh. Behind them, we are seeing the beginnings of that fight for Ellie Pocket versus Zolt Beefgartner. So this could be a rather exciting one to see just playing out in there in the background. Heading in towards the first 10 minutes of racing, it's Vermack from Milliston, Van Velzen, Skeen, Alexander, Donkin, Deesh, Beefgartner, Pocket and Rod in the top 10. A great start then we've seen here in the Hungaroring. I must say I'm pleasantly surprised. We really were expecting quite a huge calamity down through turn 1, but the drivers have got right back to work then after the disaster that was for many the run of the Bathurst double sprint. That still gave us some of the most sensational viewing of the season. Oh, hang on a tick there. That looks a little bit spotty. We saw a bit of a stutter there from Carlos Desch's point of view. Let's cut away from the 5:45 and see if that's fully the case. We see here for, as it stands, Alan Alexander and Ian Skeen, the two Mercedes cars, up in the top 5. Now, again, talking about the opportunities created from chaos, Mercedes definitely worth that conversation. Even in spite of the fact that Skeen has dropped away from the podium, it is a very rare sight to me to see Mercedes in that top 5 in this series. They're a rare manufacturer by most classification, not often picked in the wave of dominance led by McLaren, BMW and Ford, the big 3 as it were now for the Sunday League meta. Even rarer still would be an advance for, say, Ferrari at this time. We've still yet to see, I believe, a Ferrari win in this series, if I'm not mistaken. So Alan Alexander caught between a rock and a hard place here because he can't catch up to his teammate Ian Skeen, nor does he want to continue to hold up his teammate Brooklyn Donkin. Euro Titans have got a lot of eggs in this basket here inside of that top 5. 3 of those 5 positions at the moment. That's 4 in a row when you consider the top 10 from 3rd all the way down to 6th. You've got to hand it to Donkin here. He has really been able to play with fire today. Reeling away from what was back-to-back victories. The 15th driver in the history of this series and the first Swiss driver to win in the Sunday League. Brooklyn Donkin is grabbing Carlos Desch by the horns to keep him at bay. This is a very frightening sight indeed. Worth pointing out, just a moment here, yellow flags are out down in, I believe this is, yes, down through turn 5. We see here for Michael Hunt, Team FBR's number 68 BMW. Ran into a spot of bother on the run into sector 2 and 3. We're back in the green flag conditions though after that incident, whatever it may be. Worth pointing out the potential for a fight on the podium and also still the fight for the lead. Previous intervals showed it just shy of 0.8 of a second between Milliston and Vermack. We can see between the pair that gap has started to advance closer and closer and closer, but you've got to hand it here to Milliston to work with that amount of ballast over the number 1, given what he's gone up against so far in this series in the wave of the success ballast introduction. He is really towing the line in what is effectively a battleship today in that number 1, going up against what is very sprightly, the BMW. I mean, taking a look just here, have a look again at the balance of performance. Take it with a grain of salt, of course, but some of the major talking points. McLaren, one of the heaviest. BMW, one of the lightest. And that's not including the success ballast applied to Melvin Milliston. He's got one of the highest amounts in this series. So he's really playing up against these odds quite nicely. I think that goes to show the caliber of the driver we have here on display. The number 1 is really cut from a different cloth in most respects. And this is the way of sort of keeping him down to earth. You see behind here, Skeen v Van Veltzen, 0.4 of a second. Now, it's unlikely, compared to the fight we're seeing potentially brewing over the front row, that these two will get anywhere near as argy-bargy. These are, of course, teammates. They are working for a common goal. They are looking to continue to keep ETE in the forefront of the team's championship. They still hold those cards up over 5-star. 73 points they have over the team as it stands at the moment. But with a 5-star car leading this race, they are going to start to hemorrhage points here. I think it's strength in numbers they've got so far here in this round. More cars in the top 10 from Euro Titans than there are from 5-star. A metric of having a look here, that's 5 cars over 2. Having a look in behind, we see here the continued fight for Donkin and Desch for 6th place. Behind, we see as well here Pocket and Rod side by side. This is for 9th place. Ali Pocket defending the inside down towards turn 2. We see Kieran Rod sizing up a move on the exit of turn 2 here to try and cut things in on turn 3, but it's just a little too far away to make it stick. So he's going to have to bide his time here into sector 2 once again. This is one of the more frustrating elements of this track, is that it's very, very difficult to get those moves in. You're really waiting for sort of one key area of the track in the entire lap to make those moves up. We see sliding his way out through turn 5, really pushing the envelope out on what that machine can take here in the opening quarter hour. Kieran Rod up against it now with the approach of the number 5 from behind him. Stefan Nikolai looking to challenge for the top 10 as well. Number 74 brings the yellow flags out on the exit of turn 3. That's for Sergio Belda in the wall at the moment. Holkianos McLaren just gets passed up there by the 26. He's trying to back his way onto the track here. We see Michael Hunt pass him up towards 22nd. Goes the 68. We see minimal damages. I think it's just been a case where the car's been sort of thrown off out through turn 3. Has sort of bucked him off there like an angry Bronco. But now back out on track goes the number 74. Belda back into this race. Save, though, for a fair distance away. We see for Cas van Veltzen. Still holding third place, but with that considerable loss of weight, you'd expect him to be closer in this race after the first 15 minutes. He's nearly 6 seconds away from Milliston and Vermaak in their fight of the race lead. Vermaak now with the fastest time of the session so far, so it's looking to be a bit of a clean sweep here for the South African talent. The first we've seen of it since the start of last season when he won with Ford. And now in the new era for 5-star, this could very well be a hat-trick victory for the team. And Vermaak's first in well over a season, breaking the drought off of what has been a long, long time before he's seen the top of the podium once again. Of course, 45 minutes between now and the checkered flag, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Anything can and often will happen in races like these. These longer format races are really a test of willpower for a lot of these drivers on this grid. Looking back in then, we see the fight for Pocket v Beefgarter. Then further behind, we see the three-way split for the last of those top 5 spots. Carlos Deesh still hunting down Donkin and Alexander. We see Donkin have a little bit of a wobble there out through turn 8. Through turn 9 in towards turn 10. We see Carlos Deesh looking for it on the inside. So we're going to go and catch on board with that 545 to get some onboard footage from the Ford as we make our way down towards turn 12. Drops in a little bit behind Brooklyn Donkin, but you can see he's starting to put a little bit of fear into the soul of that 17 in the background. Number 61 side by side with the number 5. We see in the background there was a moment of possible overtake for Stefan Nicolai, but out through turn 12, number 61 re-secures it for the time being. We'll go and catch on with those two, as it does look to be rather interesting what's going on here for the fight of the last of the top 10 positions. On with Kieran Rodd for a moment's time before we get on to the opening straight. The number 5 of Stefan Nicolai right behind him in that fight for 10th place. Quickly looking back up ahead, we see in the background, Ellie Pocket was for a moment there sizing their chances in towards turn 1. We see Stefan Nicolai leaps for it over Kieran Rodd. Just as we cut back to the external cameras, the 61 avoids contact with the number 5, retakes 10th place. That was a little bit of a wing and a prayer there. Nicolai getting a little bit desperate for a move back into the top 10. In the background, we see a possible fight. Sam Angel versus Kyle Jenkins. That's for 13th place between the Ferrari and the Aston Martin. Getting a look just briefly here, going back on board with the leading duo. We see the gap start to close in, especially in this middle and final sector. We see from the point of view here, this is Melvin Milliston's point of view of things. BSR Twiglet in chat asking, is the Sunday NLRL team racing or individual championship? Well, it's a hybrid of both. Of course, we have the overall championship, which comprises the mainstay drivers and the rookies. We have the rookies championship, which is for drivers on their first season in the series. We have the teams championship that encompasses both the overall and the pros and the rookies into another overall space. So both sides of that contribute to the team. So you've got a mix of both, really. It's quite wonderful to see. I think the Rookies Championship was a fantastic innovation brought in the last couple of seasons to encourage new drivers to come in and compete. Obviously, it can be a rather daunting thing to drop into a championship with a lot of established drivers who have been in here since the very start, drivers who have seen race wins in every season, like Melvin Milliston, one of the only drivers that has actually been able to achieve that metric, one in every single season of this championship, one in season 1 in Red Bull Ring, season 2 in Spa, not Zandvoort. That was Wesley Kuiper, the one in Zandvoort season 1. Red Bull Ring in season 1, Spa in season 2, then multiple times in season 3 and season 4, and of course has won another 2 times here in season 5 to bring the tally currently up to 18 career wins. The possibility with his pursuits at the moment of Vermaak for a possible 19th today. BSR Twiglet asking, okay, do they still do their endurance racing on Saturday? Well, the last round of the NLRL Console Endurance Series Season 2 comes up, actually, technically not this weekend, but you know what I mean, this coming weekend. this coming Saturday will be the final round, the 6 hours of Indianapolis. We'll speak more at length over what is going to be happening for that championship heading in to the summer, and really what the future plans are for the series. We do see recent drive-through penalty there for Michael Johnson handed to him there as he continues to drop distance away from Taylor Wolford, who at the moment is pursuing another Porsche. That makes three's company there from 13th to 15th, with Gioet Boris currently 13th. Taking a look then, after nearly 20 minutes of racing, on with some of the nearby fights. One driver that is definitely impressed in this time is the newcomer to the grid here, Ellie Pocket. Registered for before Zolder, waited out through Zolder, couldn't make it to Zolder, couldn't make it to Bathurst, made it today. It's both third time's the charm then for the 855. This has been quite impressive so far. It's looking at a rookie's podium on debut. As a matter of fact, currently challenging local driver Zolt Beefgartner. This is his home race here. One of the only Hungarian talents on the grid. Competing here at the Hungaroring, a special thing for the 599, down through to turn 1. You see there in the background, big step out for Carlos Dish. What happened there? As he continues to wrestle heavy ballast up over his Mustang. We spoke of it earlier that McLarens are going to start feeling like battleships. This one's going to start feeling like a cruise ship by comparison for Carlos Dish. This has been quite a sudden jolt to the system, coming away from what was very minuscule changes to his success ballast into round 4. Now coming away from it with 2 victories under his belt. Things are definitely starting to weigh him down, quite literally. See in the background there, Pocket and Beefgartner carrying up through to turn 5. Now to turn 6 and 7 at the chicane. Looking in with the podium here, we see the possible continued fight for Van Velzen and Scheme. We see a big snap out there through turn 11, down towards turn 12 for Cas Van Velzen. Now, the stakes could not be higher for the 314 in this championship. Has had a very proactive start to things. Has been very, very competitive since his 4th career win secured at the opening of this season a few weeks ago in Suzuka. He's been very, very proactive in his pursuits of the championship lead. He's tried to hold as much ground as possible over Milliston. Things definitely did lighten up for him. He got the boost that he needed coming out through Bathurst. Really, the only obstacle standing in his way is Carlos Dish in the overall standings. But as we mentioned there, he's only got 2 results to go off of, being Zolder and Bathurst. So when he gets into that 3rd round, i.e. today, that's when we could see things change for him, when the drop point system applies to the 545. That's also going to affect his standing in the rookies, but I have pretty high hopes that he'll still be within a shot of that rookies championship this season, because we can see for Dish it has been a fantastic opening for him. 3 rounds in at the moment, all 3 of which have seen great results. At the moment, well, he may be shy of the top 5 unlike the last 2 races. He is still looking at a division win for the rookies. Of course, 38.5 minutes set to tell the difference though. You see here for Dish, he did have some moments of upset on his run out through turn 1 earlier on. We see him out through turn 4 here. Behind, we see the continued fight for Beefgartner v Pocket. Ellie Pocket looking possibly up the inside there. And are they going to attempt it? I didn't think so there. That seemed a little too risky a move to commit to. He was always willing to test the water, so it seems, for the 855. Trying to get inside the 599's head. See through sector 2, this is where we get that night and day difference in performance for McLaren. Mid-engine car over the front-engine Lexus. We see the number 40 of Ben Hart get a drive-through for track limits. So it's gone from bad to worse really today for Hart. Started from the pit lane after a decent qualifying session, indeed placed him up towards that top 10. And it's been a possible day to forget here. We see for Ellie Packet though going up the pockets I should say, going up the inside. Not a packet, not a packet of anything. There's a person in that car. You see here, looking to go into the pit lane. Top Beefgartner. So Ellie Pocket, O instead of an A. Let's get that part straight. Oh god, that's more me reminding me. But yes, Ellie Pocket up to 8th. I was thinking, you know, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy there, because I was thinking in my head, don't say packet, don't say packet, don't say packet. Said packet anyway. Idiots. Right, looking here, Carlos Dish versus Brooklyn Donkin. You'd be surprised. We had that same issue actually earlier this week with Mikhail Simek. Kept saying Semic in the opening round in Sebring for MSC. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Out through turn 3 into turn 4. Turn 2 into turn 3, actually, I should say. Out to turn 4. Dish and Donkin still fighting things out. Honestly, yeah, whilst we got the opportunity to talk about names as well, it's something I was quite surprised about. I think it was, yes, it was Tvrtko Sojcic in MSC's LMU series actually mailed in to us after that first round in Sebring saying, I'm surprised you got my name right. And I'll be completely honest with you, if you're listening in at home and you're surprised I ever get your name right, know for a fact I'm guessing. Often is case where we sort of go into this, we may sometimes consult a translate or a here or there, but often we just guess it. But if we have been saying your name wrong, do feel free to write in. "35 minutes left to go then. We still watch on here with Carlos Dish. It's worth pointing out Ellie Pocket not too far behind, and this is still in the conversation of a possible rookies lead. Bear in mind, Dish in the lead of the rookies division. We see Van Veltzen is in from the podium. In goes the 314. VSR Twiggler in the chat saying McNally like rally. Yeah, we were saying McNally in Imola for the Shooting Stars Cup, and I think we said it on a few different occasions for some interleague stuff for Sean McNally. It's just we've never encountered the name before, and it seemed like I always approach it with the mindset here, just because of the accent. I always approach it, let's just pronounce it posh and hope that that plays off of it. But no, our apologies there to Sean McNally. But now we know, you can't be good at something unless you get it wrong. And we learn all the time. We see here for Dish and Donkin. Number 40 still to serve its drive through. I mean, it's got one more lap here, so time is money. And unless he acts upon it, Bernhardt's going to be flat broke here in that number 40. Van Veltzen emerges 11th. VSR Twiglet saying he's far from posh. No, I'm talking about my accent. I've always been told there with the accent that, we sound posh. Obviously, we play it up for the stream, but I wouldn't say I normally sound like that in real life, but, to each their own. Out through to that middle sector, we see some great side-by-side here between Carlos Dish and Brooklyn Donkin. It culminates on the run down through turn 11 to turn 12. Dish up and alongside, so he's going to be to the inside at turn 12. And this has so far been super close racing, and there, solidifying his position in that top 5, goes Carlos Dish. Great move. Personal in chat saying, yeah, sort of like me, Elias Svennington was mostly a typo. Yeah, that's for Elias Svenningsson. But I think we had it, I think it auto-corrected. I'll be completely honest with you. I think it was a case where that auto-corrected and gave us Svennington. And that we sort of just ran with that. Of course, when we bulk make a lot of the graphics for these series, we don't often have a quality assessment process. So it's in a case if something like that slips through, it often does stick for a little while unless it's addressed. Looking at this fight here, Gioette Boris versus Taylor Wolford. Big slide out there for the number 6, however, for VEC Esports. And that otherwise cancels out his opportunity to fight with Gioette Boris. For Sam Greaves, he looks up the inside here on Wolford. Down through to turn 1. Can he hold on to it? On the exit, he's got the run of it. Heading down through to turn 2, the BMW just was so much more grunt over the Porsche, but on the brakes, that's where Wolford can stay with. And down through to turn 2, you can see properly tucked in on the inside line. Through to turn 3 we go. "32 minutes left to go then here on track. Here in the Hungaroring, heading down through to turn 5. Number 40 finally taking its drive-through penalty. As it stands then, for Max still in the lead, Milliston having dropped now 3 seconds away from the number 8. Ian Skeen currently holds onto the podium, but of course we saw earlier on Cas Van Veltzen now currently 15th on the grid as it readjusts from what previously estimates had us told was 11th. Is actually 15th there for Van Veltzen, was previously on that podium, which is where obviously Skeen is now. Speaking of Euro Titans cars, though, we see Alan Alexander sliding his way into the paddock here for his pit stop. And the number 315. It has been a very breezy start to this new chapter for him, moving away from his time with Porsche. Of course, was the first Porsche ever to win in the Sunday League. He achieved so. Not only did he go on that record, he also went on another record, which was for the first rookie to win outright. He did both of those metrics in the Kyle Army round last season. It was a very, very exciting time in the wet and wild conditions in Midrand, South Africa. We see here the start of a new age for the 315, and it seems to be much in the nature of spring. A lot of fresh beginnings for these drivers. We see here Pirelli Pocket hunting down Brooklyn Donkin. So this is for the scope of 5th as it stands there, and has really done quite a grand job to reel in the distance up over the number 17, heading up through to turn 4 into turn 5, using a lot of the strengths of the McLaren to their favour here for Pocket. This has been a great start to their endeavours in the Sunday League. We always like to bring attention to some of the new drivers on the grid, especially when they're going toe-to-toe with drivers that we're very familiar with. We saw Donkin through his rookie season. Now a confident mainstay in that top 10 on most race weekends. You see a brand new appearance on the field. I still can't shake out of my mind that that livery looks remarkably similar to the former Maloir Racing team. Their presence on the grid was felt throughout season 3 and 4. They were the first ever team's champions when that was introduced in Season 3. We see both the race-leading cars of Vermaak and Milliston into the pit lane. Number 8 and number 1 both in. So we'll see here from the 696's point of view from Ian Skeen. He stays out. Deesh, by the looks of it there, stays out as well. Coming in goes Brooklyn Donkin. Ellie Pocket stays out. Stefan Nikolai stays out as well. Kyle Jenkins and Sam Angel. Let's see what they do. Jenkins stays out. Angel's in. Gioet Boris now currently in that top 10. Does he come into the pit lane? By the looks of it, yes, he does. For Taylor Wolford, follows him in.
We are at the halfway mark. Still a long way to go.
So heading into that dead-on halfway mark, we see the leading cars are in. You can see the physical distance just way down yonder, just up in front of the Aston Martin of Sam Angel. That is Melvin Milliston, and he's already off his Jackson on his way out. So it was a very quick stop there, down to the mark. We see these two actually racing each other onto the exit of the pits. We see there for Vermaak, he's out and already back into the lead of things. We see much closer now is Milliston. Now comes the case here. Does that additional weight give him any kind of direct advantage in terms of getting core heat back in to those Pirellis? This could be make or break, but that introduction of traffic up in front from Well Beloved, and I believe they're following in his midst, is taking a look there. I want to say that is the number, is that the not the 74, sorry, the 91 of Ivan Sanchez with Holkianos Motorsports. So a brand new era, of course, for 5-star. We spoke about that livery earlier on. For those out of the loop, the new red accents denote a building partnership we've had between ourselves here at TRT and the folks over at 5-Star Esports. We've been sponsoring their endeavours over on iRacing and a little bit on LMU for some time, but now it's reached the forefront of action here on ACC. And it's materialised in the form of this brand new livery, the red representing TRTN's influence in the team as one of its sponsors. Deesh and Pocket into the pit lane. I mean, a great start for these two at the forefront of the rookies in this race. That opening stint, very close to one another, especially in the case of Pocket there, but they were able to go side by side with quite a few drivers. They were able to stick into the fight. They didn't get washed out of it. It's super easy for that to happen. Oh, is that Gioet Boris there flickering in and out of the pit lane? I believe it is. Yeah, that... Oh, yeah, that is the... I think, yeah, that is the 67 doing that. Also in the pit lane with them then, Jenkins and Nikolai. Vermaak back up into what is now currently second, as I believe, yes, Ian Skeen has stayed out. Currently on his way down through turn 8. Milliston moves up to third. Now no traffic to divide them, but you can see the gap still plenty enough in Vermaak's favour. In and around that original 3-second margin that these two found themselves split by before their run to the pit lane just a lap or two ago. Also in the pits, Josh Wellbeloved with Nexus GT. Michael Johnson in the 663. Also in the pits there we see JM Keto with Holkianos. We see here up in front, yes, that is, I believe, Brooklyn Donkin in the number 17. Having made his way back up in front of Ellie Pocket. And behind them, Carlos Deesh. So there's actually been an exchange of the lead there for the rookies. Ellie Pocket in the lead. Now up and ahead of Carlos Deesh behind. The 855 now having to defend away from the two-time race winner out of Bathurst. Let's go to catch on board with these two, because this could be a very exciting turn of events between the pair. We see from Pocket's point of view, out through turn 5 into turn 6 and 7. Looking to catch on board with the Ford's point of view. We just quickly see here for Kieran Rod a bit of upset on the exit of turn 7. We're on board then with Deesh in the fight of the rookies lead as it stands then. Outright, it's going to be the fight of 7th when Skeen comes into the pits as and when the Mercedes elects to do so, as he's currently still out on another lap on this track, still yet to have come into the pits. This is a three-way split fight for 6th as it stands right now. Locally 7th, and then division-wise for the lead between Deesh and Pocket. See there, a little bit of over-rotation for Deesh to compensate with some of that added weight on the Mustang. He's had to really dial it in to be way, way sharper on throttle response. That car wants to rag itself through these corners now. It's very rugged to make up for that additional weight. He has to make things more fleet of foot on the pedals, more so than he can behind the wheel. He's using a lot of it. You can see it in the way that he handles the brakes and the accelerator. He's using the pedals to steer the car in symbiosis with the steering, of course, as well. You see that off in the foreground. That is, yes, that was the number 75. That's just been towed into the pit lane. Very bizarre case there for the 75. They were pulled over to the side of the road on the exit of turn 3 just before turn 4. We're here at turn 5 into sector 2. Meanwhile, the 696 is in, so the number 8 could possibly go back up into the lead of this race. Skeen left things out long. He could be playing for a strategy we weren't previously aware of. So we see here the three-way fight for Deesh, Pocket, and looking here, Brooklyn Donkin. BMW, McLaren, and Ford, the big three we spoke of earlier on, now clashing for 6th. Heavy stakes involved in all of this as well. We see the 696 is back out off of its jacks there, but it's going to drop to the back of the podium. Could even drop in further behind Cas van Veltzen. We'll go to see on board with that in a moment's time. As we're seeing from the mini-map, yes, we do see the 314 is now back up to the podium. We're still glued to the screen here for the fight between Deesh, Pocket, and Donkin. In terms of straight line speed, you know it and I know it that Ford is one of the fastest on the block here, but they're just not able to extract that kind of performance on such a short straightaway. You can see it start to appear for them just before they have to get down onto the brakes. Even then, going earlier onto the brakes to adjust for that weight is often cancelling out whatever effect the Mustang may have in this race today for Deesh. We see some side-by-side action here. Donkin holding the inside away from Pocket. Down towards turn 2 we go. Going out wide. They open the door up for the 545 to come swinging through. So up to 7th by looks of it there. Holding up alongside Pocket. Washed out wide goes Carlos Deesh. A little bit of contact there between himself and the 855. Right behind them is Zolt Beefgartner. But up to 7th goes Carlos Deesh. Now pursuing Brooklyn Donkin with no obstructions. We see wide, though, out through turn 4. Now through to turn 5. I will not say this fight is yet over between Pocket and Deesh. Down through turn 6 and 7. You see there in the... was that in the background there? It was a bit of trouble. We do see there is a yellow flag out for looking there. The number 40. Yes, Ben Hart in trouble down at turn 5. I believe that could be, yes, with more yellow flags out. The number 40 is towed into the pits. That could be the end of their race today. We're still on board here with Donkin v Deesh as they reunite to clash once more for 6th place behind them. Ellie Pocket defending away from Zolt Beefgartner for control of 8th. As it stands, though, Carlos Deesh retakes the lead of the rookies here in round 5. Down through to turn 13, turn 14 now, I believe. Yes, it is turn 14, not going crazy, thank goodness. Long week for us here on TRTN. This makes the, now thinking about it, 5th or 6th event we've had to do this week. So, again, wouldn't miss the Sunday League for the world, but Lord knows, I think my brain is starting to dissolve a little bit in here. You see difference in line on the run down through to turn 1, but still holding position strong. Then Brooklyn Donkin has had fantastic defense in this race. I mean, that's a easy easy candidate for a possible driver of the day here. You see, though, Deesh trying his luck at long last, going alongside, up and around the outside as it stands then for turn 5. He's going to try and go the full 9 yards here. My word, going down towards turn 6, all the way around town. Carlos Deesh to 6th. That takes some serious guts, and he had a full home run of it there. The number 54 has a drive-through for track limits. And taking a look onto the charts there, that pertains to Josh Wellbeloved of Nexus GT. What a move by Carlos Deesh. 6th place then for the number 545. We see it will readjust in a moment, but for Brooklyn Donkin, he's still got a very full plate here with a very eager 855 right behind them. Ellie Pocket still hunting positions, still hungry for a chance of the top 7. Currently at the back of that 4th row. Moreover, any chance they can get to put themselves up and alongside with Carlos Deesh to fight for that rookie's win in round 5 is an opportunity they will take. And you've seen they've been very proactive with their delayed start to this series. We missed out on seeing them in Zolder. We missed out on seeing them in Bathurst. But I think it is a case here for the 855. It's been 3rd time's the charm. And this could be, much like Carlos Deesh, a heavy impact into the current routing of things for the Rookies Championship. We see behind them, off by some distance here, the previous Rookies Championship lead before last weekend's round at Bathurst, Kieran Rodd. Now, under calculations at least, he's still set to continue to lead once drop rounds balance starts to set in over Pocket and Deesh. .5 minutes left to go then here in the Hungaroring. It has been a very solid installment to the series. I think anything would be a tough act to follow out of Bathurst here. Back onto the 60-minute format, things have been a lot more, I wouldn't say necessarily tame, but a lot calmer compared to what we see in Bathurst. I think that is anything's going to look a little bit mild compared to Bathurst. That's not to say, though, that we have not had some great fighting today. And as we see, possible rebuttal for position here for Brooklyn Donkin. We've really seen him get a wriggle on in that 3rd and final sector. Still trying to put distance over Pocket in 8th place behind. The 54 takes their drive through. At the lead of this race, just pointing out there for Vermac and Milliston, the gap starting to come down south of 3 seconds. 2.7 at the last interval there. We'll monitor that throughout the rest of this race here. We see for Ellie Pocket pursuing 7th off of that of Brooklyn Donkin. The 855 down through turn 1. In pursuit then of 7th on the grid. 663, newest victim then of a drive-through penalty, Michael Johnson. Down in 18th place, drive-through penalty to serve. Fortunately, very close to the pit lane entry, so you can just drop in there to the pits. I mean, that's, of course, his own volition to do so. We see here for Pocket back in pursuit of 7th place. Out through turn 5, very same place that we saw Carlos Deesh attempts that move up and around the outside of Brooklyn Donkin. We see, though, for Pocket drops way out past Donkin, now allowing Zolt Beefgartner the opportunity to come and strike for 8th place. We see they're joining us in the Twitch chat, the 5-Star Esports official Twitch channel. Is it the claim here that 5-Star is back? I mean, looking at a hat-trick of victories, there's still a long road to travel here for 5-Star. As a team, this would be their first proper scope of a championship here on console ACC since about 2 years ago in the GHR Xbox Endurance Championship. So this has been a long time coming for the team. They've been at the foot of the mountain for a long, long time, and now so begins the climb to the top. We see there, just scooting alongside the wall, one of the Holkianos cars moving out of the way to allow this pack of cars through. We see for Pocket still in close proximity to Donkin. But it's worth pointing out, Donkin has got back into the groove of things here to chase down Carlos Dish. In terms of the gap between Vermack and Milliston, that has now opened up another 3 attempts out towards 3 seconds. 3.032 at the moment, as previous indicators would show. 16.5 minutes left to go then here in the Hungaroring. Looking a little further down the field to see some close fighting here amongst 3. Kyle Jenkins, Ben Meredith and Sam Angel. Behind them, Stefan Nikolai. Quickly back on with these 3 here. And these 3 have been quite the inseparable trio. Dish, Donkin and Pocket. BMW, Ford and McLaren. All still trading position here. Bear in mind, there is still heavy stakes involved with this because 5-star are looking at a clean sweep here in this race, because that would also be the rookies win for Carlos Dish, meaning in division, that's now a hat-trick of victories he's sizing up by the end of this round. For Tyler Vermack, it'll be his first victory in over a season. Back in now with the 5-star esports team after a bit of a hiatus to their lineup. So against the claims that 5-star is back, I'd say very likely. Very, very likely. Still half the season, though, left to go. And as we've seen historically here in the Sunday League, anything can and will happen. 15 minutes, though, left to go into the last quarter hour. Tyler Vermack leads ahead of Melvin Milliston with Cass Van Velten in 3rd, Ian Skeen in 4th, and Alan Alexander in 5th. Carlos Dish on your screens at the moment in 6th, with Brooklyn Donkin in 7th, Ellie Pocket in 8th, ahead of Zolt Beefgartner 9th, and Kieran Rodd rounds out the top 10. We see Taylor Wolford now picks up another, another drive-through penalty is picked up by a driver, and it's for Taylor Wolford. Further behind then, Dish, Brooklyn Donkin, Ellie Pockets, or Beefgartner and Kieran Rodd. Kyle Jenkins, as we see there, for 11th place at the moment, continues to hold off an advance by Ben Meredith as we see them down towards turn 2. The 2 Ferraris head-to-head right behind them there. TSRC Esports is Sam Angel. Carlos Dish has a drive-through penalty. So for 5-star esports, the chances of a clean sweep may have just been sundered. They'll still have the outright win here, but in terms of divisions, it could very well go to Ellie Pocket on their first ever appearance. Something was very determined about the way we saw this one drive, and I had it in the back of my mind here. They could have fought for the division win, and it seems in the final 15 minutes, that chance has now presented itself to them. It's now or never. Hammer time for the 855. It could be a win on debut to the rookies. Very exciting stuff then to bring us out of the first half of the series here for Season 5. We've seen, and this is a very scary notion when you consider that Dish has now recently picked up a drive-through. We've seen that track limits have been super strict here in the Hungaroring. That sort of plays in part as to why this isn't the most popular circuit for drivers. It also plays into that feedback loop to why so many drivers don't often have great acclimatization to this track. So we saw there a bit of a step out for the 113 as we see from the point of view of Ben Meredith charging up here towards Kyle Jenkins. This is for 11th. And 2 Ferraris head-to-head. The Aston Martin glued to them there. That's Sam Angel on the run down towards the line. Of course, last season, Angel was with Lexus. So it's 3 abreast down towards turn 1. Goes back into single file with, by the looks of it there, Kyle Jenkins still leading the charge. But Sam Angel up a position over Ben Meredith. Great move from the Aston Martin amidst the confusion of things down into turn 1. Holds it through at turn 2. So, the newfound lead of the rookies, and bear in mind, another drive-through has just been kicked out there for Van Velten. So, Ian Skeen could be seeing a podium here in the Hungaroring with Mercedes. Alan Alexander could be upgraded to 4th place. But Van Velten's championship chances are now up in question, heading into the second half of the season. Bear in mind, he needed as much mitigation of damage he could get in this round, knowing that he couldn't catch Milliston, but this has now come at a horrible time for him. So getting back onto this point just briefly here, as we go back in to see some of the other fights, we see Nikolai versus Meredith. We wanted to talk about the leading car, Tyler Vermack. We've seen it to be a case with track limits so strict here, as we've just seen evidenced by, not only do we see Dish have to drop away from the division lead, now having dropped down to division as it stands 4th but 14th overall. It is a case here now seeing that drive-throughs are appearing for drivers very close to his own pace. Can Vermaak hold on to the pressure? We've seen it to be a case where he's led races before here in the Sunday League. We see Nikolai looking up the inside, fails to materialise though on the run through turn 13. And we've seen it to be a case for Vermaak. Is he going to be able to cope with the pressure this time around? We've seen it to be almost a historical case where when he leads these races by a confident margin, something as if by a cruel stroke of bad luck creeps up on him to take it away. We see in the background there, side by side, Nikolai v Meredith. Up to 12th goes the number 5. At this point here, he is in a catch-22. Melvin Milliston has been able to stick to him very closely here, has not faltered away by more than about 4 seconds over the course of the last 49 minutes of racing here in the Hungaroring. If Vermaak continues to push, he runs the risk of that drive-through. He runs the risk of falling away from that lead on what could be very well his career 6th. Moreover, if he starts to relax too early, he now runs the risk of that gap faltering, it dropping away, and then being caught up by Milliston. We see the physical gap between the pair. They share the same stretch of the track here. They are not too far apart from each other whatsoever. This may very well be for these two the tensest 10 minutes of the season so far. For Van Velzen, it's been a real struggle today. Heavy ballast under the success ballast regulations, and that's created knock-on issues with car performance. That's ultimately what's led to him drifting off the track limits on a few occasions, and that, by proxy, is what's given him that drive-through penalty. He leaves the pits with Skeen now up to 3rd, Alexander to 4th, Brooklyn Donkin with Ellie Pocket in pursuit down towards turn 1. And I believe, as it stands there, Van Velzen, yes, we just see up in front there, is in currently the scope of 4th place. So he's only dropped, actually, sorry, 5th place. So he's currently in the scope of only having lost 2 positions out. You see for Donkin v Pocket. Nine and a half minutes to go here. Catch 22 for Vermaak. Nearly 4 seconds up over Milliston, so evidence would suggest he's pushing. Or, conversely, it could be a case where Milliston's on his final warning. Either are applicable cases here. Very easy as well in the last 10 minutes of these races, especially when we've seen track limits to be such a pressing factor. This does include other series we've covered here on TRTM where drivers get into this sort of rushed mentality. They have to get to the end of the race. They have to get through this as quickly as possible, but all they're doing is introducing more opportunities for something to go wrong. It's Murphy's Law all over again. Whatever can go wrong often will go wrong. See then Ellie Pocket still on the trails here of Brooklyn Donkin. You've got to hand it to the 17. This has been one of the sternest defenses of position we've ever seen. He has held off an advance from all fronts here. He's held the line. Absolutely stonewall defense from the number 17 to hold on to 6th place. The McLaren riding on his diffuser down towards to turn 1. The Pocket, they're looking onto the braces here of that first ever career rookies win. It's about the satisfaction of taking 6th place here, and that's why they've stayed so close to Donkin over the course of the last 15 or so minutes here into that second half of the race, but washing a little bit out wide. They've got to be careful. No one is spared from the indiscriminate wrath of race control and the track limits violations today, as we've seen so many affected. Most recently, of course, them being Cas Van Velzen, who's still in the top 5, but having dropped 2 positions behind his comrades Alexander and Skeen. He's going to find himself coming up relatively empty-handed to hold off Milliston's advance. Now, of course, there is still the elephant in the room being the 545, and speaking of, we do see here part of that fight now with Stefan Nikolai and Ben Meredith. This is Carlos Dish, currently looking to return to the rookies' podium, salvaging what's left of today's drive. Side by side nearly there with Meredith. We can see he's all over him. Ryan really trying to put the pressure on. You see on the exit of turn 7, big bump on exit there. That really badly upset the balance on his car. It's what's forced him into the hindsights there at the number 5, and it's contact between Dish and Nikolai. Taking a look here on the exit of looking at it there. That's out through turn 9 as to what happened. So obviously a big upset on exit. Comes in through turn 9 here, and then bang, just clashes with his rear right. Fortunately, though, it's a case where that double impact has self-righted, has kept him out of harm's way in the long run. Taking a look back in then with the fight of 6th place. Ellie Pocket versus Brooklyn Donkin down through to turn 1. Zolt Beefgartner really close behind as well. It's worth pointing out either of these two end up in a similar situation to what we just saw there for the 545 and the 5. They could find themselves with the 599 right on top of them for the control of 6th place. This represents one of the closest fights on track here, Pocket v Donkin. Also a close fight to consider. Meredith v Jenkins, but that's 9/10 of a second over there too. In through to turn 6 and 7. 5.5 minutes to go. You can see Donkin is he's not taking any risks. We saw that's a very clean line. He's trying to stay as far as he can in that area off of the curbs, knowing that's a real soft spot on this track for track limits. It's either been a case where he's done that on purpose or he's overcooked the brakes and has had to style it out, but I would believe either case here, because you can see how quick he is, very hesitant to get back into the clear and narrow. He's almost jolting the car out through turn 11. You can see that, just wants no part, doesn't want to ride the white lines whatsoever, wants as far away from them as he can get, knowing the value of the position he holds on track. You've got to consider from the point of view here of the 855, new driver on the field. Ellie Pocket is only about 5 minutes away from seeing victory in the rookies division on debut, mind you, as well here with McLaren. The satisfaction of a division win is already there, but this is just the sort of cherry on top of the proverbial cake. 6th place hangs in the balance here out through turn 1. It's been a very, very tough game here. The unstoppable force meets the immovable object. It seems that Pocket's been on the warpath throughout their opening race in this series, and Donkin has had his best defensive performance so far in that number 17. You shall not pass, says Donkin. Taking a look in with another very close fight here. It is 3 abreast for a moment's time there on the exit of turn 1. 2 Euro Titans cars pressured by the approach of Carlos Dish. It's 3 abreast down into turn 2. Up the inside, goes for one position, then bumps with another. Carlos Dish into the wall at turn 2. Nikolai just sweeps in through as he drops now down to 14th. It's down and out here for Carlos Dish. That was his chances of a division podium scattered in the closing laps of this race, but never say never on the chance of that kicking off again. We still have time. You see here on the exit of turn 11, down to turn 12 in sector 3, Pocket v Donkin. Once again on with these two, inseparable in their claim of 6th so far. The division win already, I was almost about to say already in the pocket there, already in the bag for Ellie Pocket. But he's still feverishly clawing at the chances of 6th, and you've got to hand it to the commitment here from the newcomer to go toe-to-toe with drivers that we've seen for upwards of seasons, plural in most cases, especially for some drivers we've been seeing in other areas of the community for quite some time. Zolt Beefgartner was one that's been on our radar for quite some time. We see him tucked in behind these two at the moment. Brooklyn Donkin has been on our radar for some time in a few different series. Looking back in then with the clash of the Titans, as it were. Euro Titans head-to-head here for 11th. We do see quite a bit of trouble here for Kieran Rodd. That impact with the 545 may have left him with some lasting damages down towards turn 1. We see the number 5 sizing his way to the inside, trying to force some early defense there off of Meredith. But Stefan Nikolai comes up empty-handed in his efforts to get up and around the 313. Ultimately, the 545 still right on his trails. Late onto the brakes there for the number 5. Does that open the door up for Carlos Dish to come sweeping back in for control of 13th place on the run out through turn 4. We see it's super close between the pair. Turn 3, I should say. Sorry, up towards turn 4. Running out wide, the number 5 there slides back in, up in front of the 545, up in towards turn 5. We're getting sick of the number 5 there. In towards turn 6. Number 67 in trouble. Gio Boris from 16th. Yellow flags out at turn 3. Out through turn 8. We see things get super close there for the 61 and the 313. In through to sector 3. Checking in just briefly here. The 855 and the 17 still at arms here for control of that leading position. The leading car of Vermaak, I think, is just on his final lap at the moment. On his way down through turn 6 and 7. We see for the 61 and the 313, possible side-by-side action to be expected in the background there. Very close a hand between the 545 and the number 5. The 17 and the 855 on their way through turn 1 into turn 2. It's now or never here for 6th place, and Brooklyn Donkin has done more than enough at his time to hold off Ellie Pocket. I believe with about 40-odd seconds left to go here for Vermaak, it will be one more lap coming up. You can see in the background there, 3.5 seconds away from him, is Melvin Milliston in the number 1 Velocity Racing Team McLaren. So I think by the looks of it there, we will be seeing one more flying lap. So that gives these drivers one more opportunity. In through to turn 6 and 7. Yes, I see you in chat there, 5-star Jupiter. Hilarious. There is that risk looking in with Tyler Vermaak that he has really been pushing the car quite hard. He's got to do one more lap here. He cannot afford any mistakes now. No track limits violations. He can't have anything step out of line. Watching on here with the pack. Just quickly down the order for Carlos Disch. Just runs out wide at turn 5 into turn 6 and 7 here at the chicane. And it looks like Kieran Rod may have just been able to hold this one off of his teammate and off the swarm of Mustangs queuing in behind. Meanwhile, in the queue of things for Donkin v Pocket, as it starts to separate, Pocket in 7th. We see that, is that damage? Yes, it is for Pocket. So what happened? Oh my goodness, nearly into the wall as well. Over rotation, something amiss with the McLaren at the lead of the rookies. Down through to turn 12. We're keeping an eye out for the arrival of the number 8. Sadly, we don't have an updated graphic for Tyler Vermaak at this time, as his move to BMW was still one quite recent on record. But I don't think that will distract much from what is very clearly in front of us. Meredith and Rod still pursuing then onto that final lap. These two inseparable, and then with the recent company there of Carlos Disch still pursuing to put himself back on the podium. It could go down to the wire amongst these drivers, and we see that with lap traffic in the way with the Hulkianos car. Stefan Nikolai bumps the 91. What a bizarre turn there we've seen. Heading out through turn 14 though, nothing can distract us from what we're seeing to the line here. Tyler Vermaak takes his career 6th in the Sunday League. A warm welcome back to the 5-star esports team for the number 8. Victory in the Hungaroring. Milliston in 2nd place. And then we see to the line here, not far away as it stands, will be Ian Skeen to the podium with Mercedes AMG. Alan Alexander on his first drive in this season for Mercedes looks to see the top 5. Van Velten in the top 5 as well amidst that drive-through penalty, catching on board with the trailing end of fights today. It looks to be a definitive 6th for Donkin. We do see people leaving the session, so that's kind of thrown everything away there. Now we have to wait for the full results to come through. Cheers. But nonetheless, watching with the 61, fending off from the 313. This is for 11th, and for the division 2nd in the rookies. 3 rookies head-to-head here. Rod, Meredith, and Disch. How does it fold out here for these drivers? We see that a 313 runs out wide, and the 545 looks to challenge in towards turn 12. It's side by side, a little bit of rubbing there between Rod and Meredith. Down in towards turn 12, they're leaving the door open for the advance of the 545. It's contact with the number 5. Stefan Nikolai collides with Carlos Disch on the 2nd to last corner. How does he hope to hold position there? That is quite something. In through to turn 14, and there we see shoulder checked to the wall. This is brazen between the pair. Absolutely frayed nerves between the 545 and the number 5. What a controversial end there. Head loss by Carlos Disch. Turns out the number 5 Those two got way too much bad blood on the end of that race, but oh my word. We said Bathurst may not be an act this could follow up on. Think again. Tyler Vermack wins then a hat-trick of victories for the 5-star esports team and winning in the rookies, Ellie Pocket in the 855 McLaren. So looking at the rest of the order then, Milliston second, Skeen third, Van Velsen fourth, Alexander fifth, Donkin sixth, Pocket seventh, and there we see Beefgartner eighth, Angel ninth, and Jenkins in the top 10. Rod in 11th on Division second for the rookies, Meredith in third in Division 12th overall, then Nikolai in 13th, Deesh 14th, Greaves in 15th, Boris 16th, Hunt 17th, Wolford 18th, Johnson 19th, Keto 20th, Sanchez 21st, and Belder in 22nd. 3 DNFs as it stood then, Wellbeloff, Hart and Betterson. Oh my goodness then, this is going to be a rather interesting one. We came out of that last round with a lot of controversy to talk about, but now we've seen it unfold in front of our very eyes. The collision between the 5 and the 545, Stefan Nikolai and Carlos Deesh. Technically, Nikolai held position at the end of that race, but was turned up and around by the 545. Very frayed nerves there. The stewards are going to be busy. Absolutely agree there with Jason Bush, Season 2 champion of the Sunday League in our Twitch chat at the moment, saying the very same thing. And there we can actually see one of the stewards in the chat telling us not to remind him. Well, ultimately, that's your job, not ours. We don't envy what you've got coming up against you there. But what a race that's been. Career 6th then for Tyler Vermack. Breaks the tie away from what he's held in previous stead over the course of his career here in the Sunday League with Wesley Kuiper and Jason Bush to put himself in a definitive 2nd place for the all-time win record. We'll get that statistic up for you in just a moment as we adjust the record. A 6th career win then for the South African talent, bringing that statistic up then. Now slots in behind Melvin Milliston in a definitive 2nd place. A joint 3rd still exists then between Wesley Kuiper and Jason Bush. Further behind then Cas van Velsen with 4 overall race wins. Now I'm taking the metric of overall race wins. If we were to throw the rookies in here, we'd be here all day. But taking a look further behind, Carlos Deesh, of course, with those 2 outright race wins in the last round. Then Levi Warner in Laguna Seca last season. Alan Alexander in Kyalami last season. Then further down through the order, Cassier, Rosnov, Skeen, Ivanov, Van Manen, Putuk and Baptiste, all with a single race win. Well, that's all from us here on TRTN. And taking a look into that second half of the championship then, Paul Ricard. Now, ignore the dates there on the right-hand side of these placards. They are out of date because of those technical delays we had a few weeks ago. So we're actually going to be at Paul Ricard on the 22nd, Donington on the 29th, Monza on looking here on the 12th, Alton Park is going to be effectively then on the 17th of April 2026. That's all from us here on TRTN. What a controversial ending to the round then. And sadly, I think we did miss out on the Euro Titans parade, so I have to catch them in Paul Ricard, and I can see some words in there that I can't reciprocate on stream, but oh well. We'll catch them next time, and we'll catch you next time for the Sunday League. Coming up next Sunday then, Paul Ricard, round 6, onto the endurance format. That's all from us here. Take care.